Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to the second annual Women's Veterans Day commemoration. I want to thank everyone for coming near and far, and for all you beautiful lady veterans. It is heartwarming to see you all, and it's great that our numbers are increasing, and different ages, different eras. It's just so great to see everyone. So we're going to start with Sergeant First Class Tamara Sullivan singing the national anthem. If you could please rise if able.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
She's simply amazing. Thank you so much, Sergeant Sullivan. So let me start by giving you a little bit of history of women in the military, and hopefully we can dismiss some myths about women in the military and why we celebrate Women's Veterans Day. So we're a new country, so it's not going to take me long. We're going to start at the Revolutionary War. So if you have not brushed up on your history, here's your chance. During the Revolutionary War, women served as the housekeepers of war. They followed their husbands into battle, and they cooked and they cleaned and they tended to the wounded. Some, like Molly Pitcher, stepped up when her husband was injured on the battlefield, and she manned an artillery piece firing on the British in the Battle of Monmouth in 1778. During the Civil War, 400 women would serve on both the Confederate and Union sides. Disguised as men, many of them went years unnoticed. Mary Owens was a Pennsylvania native who served 18 months as John Evans before a wound exposed her secret. She received a warm welcome and press coverage upon her return to Pennsylvania. I don't know what press looked like in the Civil War, but she got quite the fanfare. Female soldiers engaged in combat were wounded, killed in action, and even captured as prisoners of war. World War I saw 35,000 women serve as clerks, truck drivers, radio operators, telephone operators, translators, and munition workers. This was the first time that women were allowed to enlist in the military so that they could free up their male counterparts to be sent overseas for direct combat operations. This is one of the first times civilian women would also work outside of the home in the war effort, making planes and munitions. World War II, we had 350,000 women who served: nurses, cryptologists, military intelligence, and parachute riggers. In 1943, the Women's Air Force Service Pilots, or WASPs, would fly 60 million miles in 2 years in supporting the war effort. 68 service women would be held as POWs in the Philippines, while 16 women were killed in direct combat action. 1,600 nurses would be decorated for bravery under fire. Korea, we saw 120,000 women serve between 1950 and 1953 in positions such as military police, and of course, a third of that number were in the medical field. Vietnam had 10,000 women who served. 90% were nurses, while the other 10% were administrative roles. 8 nurses lost their lives in Vietnam. A little bit more of the modern day for some of us. Desert Storm, 37,000 or 6% served. We were not allowed to be assigned to combat units. However, we served as helicopter pilots, engineers, military intelligence, ordnance, aboard ships, radar technicians, air traffic controllers, and many other service support roles. Women commanded units at the battalion, company, brigade, and battalion levels. The asymmetric nature of war put some of these women into combat. 5 would be killed in action, 21 would be wounded in action, and 2 would be taken as POWs. 4 female Marines would be awarded the Combat Action Ribbon for their actions in response to direct contact with the enemy. Operation Iraqi Freedom from March of 2003 to December of 2011 saw 300,000 women serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. Although initially prohibited from being assigned to combat units, the religious and cultural constraints of the local population necessitated female soldiers playing a bigger role in the interactions of the local communities. Women became integral in intelligence gathering as they were allowed amongst the women and children in local villages. At the end of the conflict, women were integrated in more combat units, with 166 women killed in action and more than 100,000 wounded. 9 Silver Stars would be awarded to women during this conflict, with Sergeant Leanne Hester being the first woman to ever receive the Silver Star for valor in combat. And if you've not met her, she's 5'2" and about 110 pounds. And that's why we're here today, to recognize the Women's Armed Services Integration Act of 1948. It granted women a permanent place in today's military. Prior to 1948, only nurses were offered an opportunity to serve in the military and be recognized as veterans. So once this was signed into law, women saw opportunities in an ever-increasing range of career fields alongside their male counterparts. They were also paid the same amount, which was a little unusual in 1948. The journey was not an easy one, and more opportunities have become available over time. Today, we have a 4-star general, I might also add an Army aviator, Laura Richardson, who commands U.S. Southern Command. And it's the opportunity to serve that we celebrate today, the recognition of our service and sacrifice from the beginning of our early days as a country to today. It's an honor to celebrate the many female veterans that are here today, their courage to step up and serve when job options were limited in a male-dominated field, and certainly not a job for the faint of heart. We celebrate the opportunity to serve this great nation, and I want to honor every one of you because you have paved the way for those that follow after us. And we all know what doctrine says, and we all know what the law says, and sometimes that goes the wayside in the battle, and it's the most qualified that gets the job. So with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker. It's our our treasurer, Stacy Garrity. She is a retired Army colonel from the reserves. And Stacy, it's all yours.
Sure. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Senator Pennycuick, my dear friend, for inviting me to be here today. And I'm honored, absolutely honored to be part of the tremendous group of women we're celebrating today, our women veterans. Now, I hit my mandatory retirement date in 2016, so 3 deployments all to the Middle East, dating to 91. But if I had not hit my mandatory retirement date, I would still be serving because serving was and is the honor of my lifetime. You know, more than 2 million women veterans live across the country, and about 66,000 of those brave heroes live right here in Pennsylvania. And one of them, I have to say, is my mom. She served proudly in the Navy Reserves for 20 years, and she was a great role model for me and my sisters. So I'm incredibly proud of her service to our country, although now that I think about it, every time I would be going to the Gap for training, all the training outside of the deployments, she liked to remind me that her annual training took place in either England or Italy. But all jokes aside, my mom, like every veteran, is an American hero, and she raised me to be strong and to be a leader, and that served me very well in the Army Reserve. So we need strong women in our military to encourage the next generation to serve our country. And I want to thank every woman who served before me, who served alongside me, for their dedication to protecting our nation's freedom. Now, as Senator Pennycuick said, while women have only been recognized as permanent members of our armed forces since the signing of the Women's Armed Services Integration Act on June 12, 1948, we all know that without the countless women that served and assisted our military since our nation's founding, that our country would not be the greatest nation in the world today. And thanks to Senator Pennycuick, we're about to celebrate the second official Women Veterans Day here in Pennsylvania on Wednesday. Her great efforts have ensured that women who put on the uniform to protect us all will always, always be recognized for their sacrifices. Service to others is truly the greatest calling, and the brave women of Pennsylvania have answered that call, becoming some of just the 1% of Americans who will wear the uniform. So we owe them all our gratitude, not just on designated days, but each and every day. We enjoy a life of freedom because of their sacrifices. And it's also important that we recognize our military families. Without the support of our loved ones, especially during deployments, we wouldn't be able to do what we set out to do. So again, I want to thank, from the bottom of my heart, all of our fellow veterans that are here today and those across the state and the country. And I especially want to extend my thanks and congratulations to all of the women being honored here today. God bless all of you. God bless Pennsylvania, and God bless the United States. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Brigadier General Maureen Weigel from the Pennsylvania National Guard. Maureen.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It is such an honor to be here with all of you today, and I want to echo the Senator for saying congratulations. This is so well-deserved. I love seeing so many women here joining us today, and I want to recognize my boss, Major General Schindler, the Adjutant General of Pennsylvania. He hired me in this position 3 years ago, and I'm the first female to have this role as the Deputy Adjutant General for Veteran Affairs. He has also hired Marilyn Kelly in the back row. She is a women's advisor for all things female veterans and minorities. We've really dove in to make sure that women have equitable services across the Commonwealth. And I'll tell you, Senator Pennycuick has been a big champion to have June 12th recognized in Pennsylvania. We are only one of 22 states that made June 12th a recognition. It started in 2018. There were about a handful of states. Today there's 22, and thanks to her and her colleagues, June 12th for Pennsylvania. So we really do appreciate you. But she's also championed women's health care. She's put a task force together to look at women's health, and that's a key component. Women are the fastest growing demographic in the armed forces, as you can imagine. When I joined, it was about 6%. By 2025, it'll be 25%. We still do not have equitable care at the VA healthcare systems. The VA knows that. They are really trying to help, but she put a task force for us to look at the gaps across the Commonwealth. Those that can get to some of the VA facilities might have access to care, but those living in rural areas do not. So between Senator Pennycuick and General Schindler with the Governor's Advisory Council for Women, we have been working together. We're very excited to announce that we came up with a magazine. They have a women's health magazine that is going to be published this week. If you're not in it, don't worry, we're going to do this every 2 years. We'll get your story in this. We did put it out, but it has a lot of resources, federal and state resources available to all women across the Commonwealth. As you heard, there's about 66,000 female veterans across the Commonwealth. Sadly, many of them do not know we have 6 long-term care nursing homes that General Schindler has the oversight of. Those homes are fabulous. They're not just for male veterans. They're for women veterans. They're for spouses. Some women from World War II and Korean War and Vietnam didn't think their service was relevant. They didn't think it mattered. They didn't think they were veterans or wartime veterans. So they don't realize that they can be residing in our nursing homes. We actually celebrated, General Schindler and I celebrated a 100th birthday of a female Marine out at Southwest Veterans Center. She used to drive the trucks at Camp Lejeune. Her service mattered. She got folks to training. She jokes about how they looked at her and saw a woman behind the wheel and she said, "Get in, I know where you're going." And she still has that Marine voice, she does. But we also celebrated a 100th birthday coming up to celebrate of a female at Hollidaysburg who not only served with the Air Force in World War II, but she came back and played baseball for the Georgia Peaches, League of Their Own. She has her mitt, she has her story. So there are amazing women, just like every one of you seated here today, that have great stories. We have to continue telling our stories. We have to continue educating the generations that are growing up now that it wasn't always easy to serve in the military. It wasn't always easy to be one of the first. We had to learn how to fit along in with the guys, whether we're listening to vulgar songs or their profanity or the environment was not always easy. But what you can take out of the history lesson that the senator outlined, the 200 years, is every time an opportunity opened for a woman to serve in another capacity, they seized it. They didn't back down. They didn't say no. They didn't say, "Am I getting equal pay?" They said, "Yes, I'll do this." Every single time. And in 2017, when then Secretary Leon Panetta opened up everything to women, women signed up to be infantrymen, women signed up to be armor, women signed up to be Navy SEALs and Rangers, and they did it. And they've done it well, like you all have, every time that we've had women serving in the military. And we are the greatest nation, not just because all of you women served. We're the greatest country because of you women. We've not had a draft. We've been able to sustain an all-volunteer force because more women are raising their right hand to support and defend the Constitution of this wonderful nation. And it's thanks to the women today because they know they're going in harm's way. They know they're going to be infantrymen in armor. They know that the ground war will be something they're going to have to tackle, and yet they come again and again and they serve. So it is an honor on behalf of General Schindler to serve you as your Deputy Adjutant General for Veteran Affairs, but it's more an honor to stand here today proudly as another female veteran, recognizing all of you for your service. So God bless all of you. Thank you for what you do, and thank you, General Schindler and Senator Pennycuick.
So we have selected 4 veterans to tell their stories. The first will be Sarah Cook from the United States Marine Corps, Gianna Van Nice from the United States Navy, Tamara Barber Camera from the U.S. Army, and Christina Kinlaw from the United States Marine Corps. So Sarah, you want to come up?
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to acknowledge Senator Pennycuick, Treasurer Garrity, and Brigadier General Weigel, and other distinguished guests, and my fellow veterans. It is truly an honor and a privilege to share this stage and be in the same building with all you hard-charging and patriotic women. A brief history about me. My name is Sarah Cook, and I was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. I enlisted in 2004 out of Texas and became a logistician stationed in Hawaii. During my first enlistment, I was in a mostly non-deployable unit, so the most action I saw was an exercise to Australia where I earned the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal. After getting out, I had a difficulty adjusting to civilian life. The things that I loved about the Marine Corps, the structure, the camaraderie, and the feeling of belonging to something bigger than myself were missing. But most of all, I deeply regretted having not deployed. So I went back to the Marine Corps, raised my right hand, and asked to get back in. The Marine Corps offered me 1-year orders to Afghanistan, which I eagerly accepted. I became the first female robotics technician and trainer for the robotics department of the Counter IED Defeat Program, which Senator Pennycuick was also a part of. During my deployment, I absolutely loved it. I supported EOD, combat engineers, and infantry units in all branches of the military across 14 forward operating bases in northern and southern provinces of Afghanistan. In the Marine Corps, we're taught to always seek self-improvement, not just with job proficiency, but mentally and physically as well. And it was this mindset that motivated me to get my black belt while deployed to a hostile and dangerous environment. At the end of my tour, I was awarded the Commendation Medal, Afghanistan Campaign Medal, and other awards. And since leaving active duty the second time, I finished my associate's and bachelor's degrees in applied arts and sciences, and I now continue to serve our great country and the military as a systems analyst for the Department of Defense. I also have the privilege of serving my community as the state adjutant for the Marine Corps League of Pennsylvania. So why are we here today? We are here to recognize and celebrate the women that came before us and forged the way forward. They raised their right hand, made sacrifices, and woke up every day willing to write a blank check to this nation. They faced tremendous hurdles and challenges and overcame those, which is what brought us all here today. The opportunities that I was afforded on active service were because of the women before me that raised their hand and said, I can run 3 miles just like the males, or I can fire the same weapon from the same distance just as proficient as the males. The significance and importance of today is also personal for me. It's a common occurrence when I'm out and about with my husband, and even if I'm wearing a Marine Corps shirt, people automatically assume that he is the veteran of the two of us. I'm sure that a few of my fellow women veterans have experienced being mistaken as the daughter, sister, or spouse of someone that served. But today, there is no mistaking our service. As a child, I was deeply moved by the movie Saving Private Ryan. I was motivated and in awe of the courage and sacrifices that generation made for this nation. I made the commitment to myself as a young girl to join the Marine Corps. But at the time I entered active service, there were no opportunities available for women to hold infantry positions. Today, women have broken through that and several more barriers, and not one military occupation cannot be held by a woman today. When one of us breaks through a barrier, I believe it motivates the rest of us to do the same. We've had our first female combat infantry officer, pull-ups are part of the PFT program, and full integration in recruit training. With that being said, I'd like to acknowledge you, Senator Pennycuick. Ladies, thank you all for commemorating this day and continuing your government and public service while motivating the rest of us to do the same. In the Marine Corps, we're called the few, the proud, but women in the Marine Corps call ourselves the fewer, the prouder. Thank you all for the honor of being allowed to speak before you today. Semper Fidelis.
That was beautiful. The deep blue waters of the Pacific called me. More times than not, when I do wake up and remember a dream, it's about the ocean. Or I can close my eyes and I'm back on a bridge wing of a cool gray steel warship as the officer of the deck underway. And the wind is whipping my hair under a ball cap. I'm squinting against stinging breezes to see out across swells of deep blue expanse. And the smell of salt and metal fill the air. It's so real in my mind still, although it's hard to describe in this room in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm Jonna. I'm a Navy veteran. It's just incredible to be here today. I have to pause and say that. It's wonderful to see everybody. When I took the day off of work, I had no idea what to expect. And it's been a truly humbling experience, from getting to meet veterans, standing around, waiting for everything to start, and listening to my fellow veterans on the stage and hearing our remarks here. I'm constantly amazed by the resilience of women, and especially women veterans. I was stationed, my first ship, the USS Peleliu, LHA-5, a 40,000-ton capital ship, the second largest ship in the Navy. I was the second woman stationed on board, and I was the first to qualify officer of the deck underway. Ironically, I never thought about it. I just wanted to prove myself as a line officer and do my job. It wasn't actually until a few months ago my kids pointed out, "Mom, you were the first on that ship." And I realized, wow, yeah, I was. I had the sea and anchor detail pulling into Darwin, Australia on September 9th, 2001. When we left Darwin on 9/11, we were at war. And I stood on that same bridge wing a few weeks later and looked out at the North Arabian Sea as the Peleliu was the first ship to debark Marines from the 15th MEU to Afghanistan. I was on the same bridge wing during the shock and awe. And when we got home, the whole world had completely changed. Fast forward just a few days, and I was on another bridge wing, this time on USS Benfold, DDG 65, off the coast of California, a much sexier destroyer. Arleigh Burke definitely beat the cumbersome steam boiler driven Peleliu. And that was my new home. And instead of focus on navigation, I focused on weapons, force protection, and anti-terrorism. I led all the visit board search and seizures for the next deployment. My last command in the Navy was as an administrative officer at Regional Support Organization in San Diego, and it was really bittersweet. You see, at that time, there was no provision for a line officer who got pregnant. So I made the choice to be a mom. That choice is in his final semester at Penn State. I'm an incredibly proud mama of 5 now, and I only dream of those bridge wings anymore. But the lessons learned and the camaraderie, I feel, even with you all in this room, our shared experiences, the resilience, those memories of bridge wings in my deep, cold blue Pacific Ocean are some of the most profound and important and impactful in my life. So sisters in arms, brothers in arms. It's been an honor to hear from a few of you. I look forward to hearing more. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, I'm throwing this speech right out the window. Honest to gosh, I can't follow that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Senator, for having me today. It is an honor and a privilege to stand here. I'm going to go offline in that. I'm going to copy this, whatever, but these people are so good, I don't know what to say. My name is Tamara Barber Kamer, and I am retired from the Army Reserves with 28 years of service. I did a tour in Iraq. I was asked to give a brief speech on something memorable from my career. Well, having served 28 years, it's really hard to come up with anything. So there is one constant throughout my career, and that was my mentors. And it started with my sister, Connie. She was in the Army Reserves at the time, and I was just graduating high school, and she kept saying, Tammy, you gotta join. She says, you'll love this. Well, Vietnam was going at that time, and I said, no, I don't want anything to do with it, no. Well, she kept after me for 8 years. So one day I got in the car, picked up my sister, went to the Reserve Center, and I signed on the dotted line. I was married, 2 children, and no, I did not ask permission. I did it. My first unit was the 1005th General Supply Company out of Uniontown, and I was fortunate enough to run into my first mentor, Platoon Sergeant Lenny Dulick. Lenny pushed me to do everything. I loved the Army. My sister was absolutely correct. I was 26 years old, and I was thrilled to be there. He told me to put in my packet for sergeant. I said, no, Lenny, I don't want to go anywhere. I really love it here. He said, go. He says, you have to. And I said, no. So he put in my packet. He pushed me out of the unit. And I said, okay. So I was promoted to sergeant. My next unit, I met 2 more mentors, First Sergeant Carl Cathers and First Lieutenant Wayne Sokola. I had high respect for those men. They too pushed me. Lieutenant Colonel Wayne is also my friend today, and he continues to push me. He kept saying, go get some more MOSs. And I said, that's military skills, occupational skills, just in case. See, I get confused. Now, my friend Lenny, he thought he was getting rid of me, right? Well, through my promotions, I kept following him. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I got promoted. So I wanted to be like my earlier mentors. And when I became first sergeant of the 864th Replacement Company, I decided to be a good mentor. When they were offloading a truck, I was right there with them. When they were cleaning their weapons, I too was cleaning mine. When they were going through the gas chamber, and that was one of my MOSs, I was pushing them through the gas chamber. I was right there with them. When we did physical training, I also pushed them because I was the first one across that line. I was not going to be last. My sister, she was so correct when she said, "You would love it." Now, my last unit was with the Defense Logistics Agency out of Fort Belvoir. My mentor there was my commander, Colonel Raymond Garr. I was in awe being there at the DLA, and Colonel Garr led me to excel in my position. With his guidance, I was able to walk beside him, travel with him, and learn my duties. And we're still friends today. Let me tell you about one thing that Sergeant Dulick did to me. When I was in the 1005th General Supply Company, I was excited to be driving deuce halves, and forklifts. And one day I said, "Sergeant, can I please drive the deuce up the hill and park it? It's the end of the day." Finally, he said yes, and I'm all excited. I'm in that deuce, and I'm driving, right? He jumps up on the running board, sticks a hose in the window, and starts spraying me with water. That was the kind of man he was. So I say to you, be a mentor, lead, follow, and do to those you have under you. They will be grateful and they will remember you. I thank you, fellow veterans, fellow sisters and brothers, for serving our great country, because without you, we would not be here today. May God bless you, those who are serving and still and have served, and God bless America. Thank you.
Hello, Senator. Thank you for having me. Everyone that's here today, my fellow lady vets, and my supervisor over there. She don't like me calling her that, but that's boss lady. As the pamphlet says, I spent 10 years in the United States Marine Corps. I joined when I was 17 years old. I think I signed up around 11th grade before I finished 11th grade. So I kind of knew I was going to go in the Marine Corps. No other branch would do. I applied for colleges, got basketball scholarships, all that good jazz, and I was, no, I'm not going. I'm going in the Marine Corps. So I joined, and 7 months later, I found myself in Iraq. My first deployment, I was the youngest Marine there, had to cut the cake during the ceremony and all that good stuff. During that time, I had no structure. I had no discipline, quite frankly. And I found myself in the middle of the sandbox with people who would become my friends, lifelong friends, people that I still talk to today, And then I came back home, and just adjusting back to base was a little weird. So I went back out there about 7 months later, second deployment to Iraq. I was blessed to have really good leadership. I used to hear all the horror stories of women's experience in the military, especially in the branches, the Army and the Marine Corps. But I was very fortunate to have good leadership that looked out for us. My second deployment, I was what they called a lioness in the Marine Corps, not like the TV show. We did not go undercover, but we did do a lot of cool stuff. So there, I gained lifelong friendships. I learned how to be a leader. I think I was about 19 at this point. I had about 10 other females underneath me. I didn't know what to do with those females, but I had, again, very good leadership that held me under their wing and taught me, the good traits of being a leader, going off of regulations and not preference, and wanting those Marines coming up after me to be a little bit better. When I came back home, I was maybe home for another few months, and then I was off again to Afghanistan. At this point, I done picked up the rank of sergeant, and everybody know in the Marine Corps, as a sergeant, we pretty much run everything. And it was a good time. I got to feel myself a little bit. But then I became more responsible, more Marines underneath my charge. I became the field wireman, the chief, as just a sergeant, which is a staff sergeant, gunny billet. And in the Marine Corps full of guys, I once had to stand on top of a table just to get everybody's attention to talk about the plans for wiring a whole base up. no one would listen to me because I was a little female and didn't have as much experience, but I had a good plan and I just needed good people to support me. I didn't have to stand on the table after that one time. Everyone listened, everyone followed my plan, and together, we worked together and we got the whole base, wired up at Camp Leatherneck. Some of you guys were there, right? Camp Leatherneck. I remember it used to be a really, really small base, and then by the time I left there, it was huge, very huge, with a bus system. So I don't know how it looks now, but a lot of Marines, a lot of CBs, a lot of soldiers really built that base up from scratch. A lot of that was filled up my resume when I got out. So I got out about 2 enlistments ago, 8 years ago. And when I first, hung up my uniform, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was lost in a sense. I worked my way up in the Marine Corps, and then I got out and there was nothing in front of my name anymore. I got out, and like a lot of vets that I help today, I was going down the wrong path. Untreated mental health, untreated anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of fond memories that I left behind. When I arrived in Philadelphia, back home, a veteran, also a social worker at the VA, really tugged me along and helped me to get back on the right path. So as I was in school, just taking random classes for a paycheck, I will admit, I had to figure out what I wanted to do, and I didn't know what this lady did, but whatever she was doing was helping me. So I decided I wanted to do that too, and I became a social worker. So now, what I do now is I work for the Veteran Initiative Unit in Philadelphia, and we help veterans who find themselves in trouble when they get out, who find themselves with drug addiction when they get out, who find themselves with PTSD and depression, anxiety when they get out. And because of all that unchecked mental health issues, they end up in trouble. They end up finding themselves arrested, in jail, and then eventually in the Veterans Initiative, Veterans Court, or any other court for that matter. And what I do now today is help those veterans navigate through the criminal justice system, navigate through the medical system. We help them navigate through mental health so they can get back to being the people that they were. So the Marine Corps, although I wanted to do 20, I stopped at 10. I figured out a way to continue serving and to continue helping out my fellow veterans and to continue to help myself be a better person. Because every day we wake up and that goal is just to be a little bit better. And I carry that with me every single day. Thank you.
Four remarkable stories, and I know there's so many more out in the audience. This is the end of our program. I want to thank everyone for coming. We do not have your posters here. They're down in the lower rotunda in the East Wing. So please go down and look at your poster with your picture and your story. We're happy to get them to you, or if you'd like to take them, you can take them as well. But I want to thank all of you for contributing. The display will still be online, so send a note to all your family and friends and tell them to look, because that's really important, because we celebrate each and every one of you, and there are not enough words in my vocabulary to thank all of you for coming today. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.